minutes ago.
If
I don't
you,
know why
Black
we
women
knew,
have been facing
you
a
would
silent
answer those
G-side
questions.
in America for over 200 years.
Black
They don't
people,
know
black
shit.
people,
They just tuned in. They're
Okay.
just tuning into the
You are
program.
not a black woman,
I
Selkies.
really do
You are
hate
not
it.
a black
I
woman,
agree with you. I
Selkies.
hate it
My
when
ass.
I
My
hate it when
ass.
the profiles
You are
do
a
the
black
whole
woman.
blackface thing. When they do the whole blackface, I'm a black woman. Oh, as a black man, as a black
Supposedly.
person.
Selkies, you know how I know?
Oh,
You know how I know you're not a black woman? Do you want to know how I know how you're not a black woman?
It's
You
not
gave yourself up because you didn't say I go to Spelman. You said
She
I go
did
to
just
an
now.
You just said
HBCU.
it.
Which one, Selkies? Which HBCU do you go to? Quickly.
It's not a crazy,
Pull one out her ass.
Quickly.
and it's not a crazy comparison to make because it is actually a fact. And like there are multiple ones going on here in the US. Just because they're silent doesn't mean that they're not happening. It means that you get to ignore them. And I don't care and I don't care whether or not you are I don't care if you're black. I don't care if you're not black. There are multiple G-sides going on right now in the United States and have been going on for hundreds of years, okay? That includes Black Americans and Indigenous. That has been going on. The thing is that you get to be comfortable with them. I don't care if you consider yourself, I don't care what you say that you are. I'm letting you know right now that those are two facts. Those are facts. If you know what constitutes a G-side, you would not have said that it's a crazy comparison. If you know what constitutes a G-side, and you would know that for the Indigenous here in the United States, they're even further along than Black Americans.
Yep.
If you actually knew what you were talking about, the Indigenous are further along and we're not far behind. This is not the panel to try nonsense with. We know what we're talking about. Okay?
No, Renee, we don't have anything better to do than during Black History Month because we're black and we're talking about black people shit. No, get the fuck out.
Anyway,
So my question. Oh, go ahead,
I
Sarah.
want to be able to bring somebody up. Is anyone willing to drop down?
I
can drop.
I'm willing.
Okay.
Oh,
I'll drop. I just want you to guys, if you can ask this question, I want to know where's this energy? Like, if someone can really say where's this energy that they seem to have for all these strangers on the internet, because they know they won't get their bums. I'm trying to not use too many bad words. They know they wouldn't get their asses beat.
I love bums. Please.
I'm trying not to. Leave me alone. I was raised there. They wouldn't get their asses beat at a Kamala or on TikTok. They like to hide behind the screen, and they never have the same heat for MAGAs or anything else. They will always, always, always choose a safe person to punch down on instead of punching to the people that they really need to. And it's really disgusting. It makes me sad because when it's someone that looks like me, it makes me just sit here like, what the hell? What the absolute fucking hell are you doing? Why aren't you using your energy to actually try to make a change in the world? But you're so like, it's almost you get a feed and you get this joy to like just shit on people.
Because they agree.
It's the D word for them. It's like a hit of snow for them
because they agree with them.
Right now, they're trying to build coalitions with them. So what do you think?
They really agree with them. Remember how we're talking about leftists can be so far left that they're right? I personally firmly believe that a lot of them secretly believe in a lot of Trump's rhetoric. And it's not necessarily Trump's rhetoric that we're talking about. We're talking about white supremacy.
Let's go. Yes,
we're talking about
things
that have just been passed down generation after generation that they've been able to necessarily pass.
Yeah, I'll see y'all later.
And like
I'll
get in
the comments.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Love it.
No. I just want to say goodbye.
Okay, cool. Bye. They've been historically been able to get a pass by, or in the last 20 years, be able to ride the coattails of the people doing the real work. And so that's what we are seeing. We are seeing the people that actually kind of agree with the right people, right? But however, it's not necessarily always a cool thing to agree with them. So they're going to fake like they're leftists. Whole time they're not real leftists. They're just this subset of group of people that just go online and harass the people that are dedicated to actually educating people and telling them, no, that's tap dancing, that's compromising, that's selling your people out. That's not listening to marginalized people, you know? So I personally believe that they are real, what do you call them, rightists, Republicans?
You want to know what they are? You want to know what they are?
They're worse. Do you know what they are?
And maybe they're in denial.
They're libertarians. They're libertarians.
I don't know what their political label is, but I'm gonna tell you what type of people they are. They're the people that capitalism is not working for, and they were always promised that it would. So,
Poor whites.
And then let's not kid ourselves here for
Oh.
a second. Let's not pretend as if some black people that get on this app don't uphold the umbrella of white supremacy.
Christian.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so when we
guys, Miss Menopause is here, so.
oh, hold on, I'll go on mute.
So sorry. No, hello, Miss Menopause.
Hello.
How are you? We just wanted to acknowledge your presence and
Yes, I want to pay
I'm
homage.
so confused.
Miss Menopause is our is one of the pillars in our community,
one of our
and she
elders,
was
so.
yes, and so she was recently. Hey, Monet, she was recently a target of one of Cat Piss Boy's targeted attacks, and really received a lot of heat coming from that smelly area of the corner of that apartment.
The Madeline Pendletons.
threatening her with harm. Literally on this app, threatening her with physical harm. Like,
Oh,
the video.
so everybody's
Okay.
lost their complete mind.
And
This
Yuck
is
Mouth
just
Keisha was
everything.
trying to play around in her comments too.
Not Yuck Mouth.
Yuck Mouth Quiche. Yuck Mouth
So I
Quiche.
saved that video.
Quiche.
It's important to
Wait,
know.
quick question.
No,
So I can get caught up with the tea.
Hold on, Zion. Hold on.
No,
Sorry.
that's what I wanted to say.
Before 2001, before 9/11
Miss
happened.
Menopause, hi.
Hi, baby. These people were white. They considered themselves to be white. The country considered them white. They are listed as white with the Census Bureau, and they were conservative Republicans. They only just started to be people of color after the OG white people start white peopling on their ass. Sorry. After 9/11. They genuinely think they are white people. And that is why they think we are the furniture that came with the house.
And this is why
Collateral
we need
damage.
everybody to understand what is like. You can be empathetic and believe in people's right to exist and all of that, and you still need to protect yourself, because just because you see them as human beings does not mean that they see you as human beings. So
Exactly.
Not only that, but it is literally as old as immigration in America, that as soon as any other group of people comes here, the first thing that they learn quite quickly is that we, Black Americans, African American descendants of slaves, are the bottom. And as long as they treat us like shit, they can get closer to whiteness. That is a tale as old as time. There are
Yeah.
some who are able to do it and
Oh, I
blend
think-
in seamlessly. Irish, Italian immigrants, Polish immigrants, right? And then you have others who aren't necessarily as able to do it quite as well. So they'll get the smoke from white supremacists, and then they'll turn around and be like, help us. And we foolishly show up every time because that's who we are as a people. And then once they've gotten our help, once they've gotten what they need from us, then it's, who are you? Wrong number, who dis?
So am I crazy to believe that that will be the one thing that saves us in the end, is the fact that we've never retaliated, we've never have done any harm necessarily against any other group of people, because we've always been at the center of attack, like I don't know if it's
I will
too
not sit here
optimistic
and
to
say-
say in the next 20 years that they'll be begging at our feet.
Zion,
I'm not going to sit here and say that
that
Black
delusional?
people have never done harm against any other marginalized group, because historically, if you look back, Buffalo Soldiers were a thing, right?
Okay.
We did harm to indigenous people here. Now, that is another story.
Yeah.
There's a lot of context that goes into that.
Right.
However, historically, we still have always been right next to indigenous people, right there on the bottom.
Right.
I just
Like,
want to
you're
go.
So
just
am I
wanna-
too delusional to
Consistently
believe
get shit.
in the end, after all this dust settles, that they gonna be begging at me, or not me, our and indigenous, well, indigenous people's feats. Like, is that delusional to believe? Like, within because what we've seen in the last month.
Something that I've consistently noticed, and I am always on these people's necks about, and there has been no good reply, because I am indigenous, born and raised on a reservation in Atlanta, Svelte, or whoever you are, Skelty, or whatever your name is, in Atlanta too, babes. Something that I've noticed, and it is when talking about topics like genocide, oftentimes these same individuals fail to understand that their very livelihood is benefited due to the continued genocide of indigenous peoples and the subjugation of indigenous peoples. And every time I try to bring this up, I'm met with, well, what do you want me to do about it? As they're asking me to stand with them in solidarity to protest another genocide, which I happily do, but at the same time, you have to be consistent with your rhetoric, with your ideology, and it never is. And so, to kind of tie back into what you were saying, Zion, will they be crawling back and asking for help? Yes, but one of the issues is they think that indigenous people are only Pocahontas Disney movies now. That is the issue. And they refuse to accept their privilege, their own privilege, and the benefits that they have received off of the graves of my people. They refuse to acknowledge that. Yes, I think that's a whole other conversation.
They've already been, it's not in 20 years. They've already been looking at black women. They did it immediately after the election and said, what are we going to do now? And they turned and looked at us, and we said, not a good goddamn thing, because y'all told us what you think about us. And then they got mad, and that's what we're...
Hey, Harley, I'm gonna hop down for the evening because I do have to get up in the morning, but I do want to just say a few things. Number one, Trap Witch, I appreciate you coming up. I appreciate your dialogue. Opal, you already okay. Sarah, thank you for inviting me into your space. Tori, I do sincerely love you, and you do inspire people. And regardless of what people say, you do have something to say, and it needs to be heard. And I love the fact that you are unapologetic, and I encourage you to continue to be unapologetic. And the conversations that are being had because you refuse to bend or to bow to white supremacy and the tactics of white supremacy, I'm telling you, people are going to remember you for years and years and years. They aren't going to remember people like Crutches and Spice, but they are going to remember the black women that refuse to bend or to kneel at the feet of white supremacy because it came at you from all different angles, okay? Miss Menopause, let me tell you, thank you for your experience. Thank you for your knowledge. I want to pay homage to your presence on this panel because it deserves recognition and acknowledgement from a black man to an elder black woman. I acknowledge you with all of my heart. And I regret that you went through the things that you and Tori have gone through. I regret it. And I want to wish you all a good night. And I will see y'all tomorrow.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Night.
Good night.
I want to point something out also, though, that I have noticed that when you start, if you look at the stages and the steps of G-Side, then you look at where the indigenous are here in the United States, and you look at where we are. The indigenous are at the point where, quite literally, it's like a Disney story, right? Or they don't exist. Do you get what I mean? Like, everything is almost like a fantasy. So it's like we have Pocahontas, and in something that started occurring to me, but even before I met Oppo in like the past few years, I was like, wait a minute. We could have, like, where I live, there are literally like all these roads that have clearly indigenous names. Okay, live right to everything. So much is like has indigenous names on them, but like I think I've met one indigenous person in the area, right? And it started to occur to me when I met this one person. I was like, wait a minute, we never see any of these people, like, just out and about. Like, it should be pretty normal, right? To see them at the schools, to see them in the library, to see them around, right? Shouldn't we? And then it occurred to me that, like, that's part of it. And I think that because it's so quiet, this is one of those things that, like, the same thing for us as they try to remove us. That's part of G-Side. And the thing is that the people that are so pro-Palestine, they're only concerned about the loud, grotesque, and obvious things that they see, to the point they are very willing and able to ignore the ones that are happening right here, the ones that have been going on for hundreds of years, right here in the United States, right in their states, right here. And that has bothered me so
And
much.
they'll double down on it. They don't care. That's what I have a problem with.
And if you try to bring up what's going on for the indigenous, if you try, because, like, honestly, like, if you look at the steps, we're at stage 9, 10, actually, I think 9 or 10 for indigenous, and for us, we're so close behind the way that the tactics that they do. And when people are like, oh, you don't want to share your culture. No, actually, that erasure, that's supposed to be everybody's culture. That's part of the steps. That's part of the steps. And if you notice how they do it for indigenous people, and Opal can tell you, the way they make it kind of just like, it's just everybody's. It's for everybody. This is just like an American thing. No. That's part of the whole erasure thing. Erasure is a huge part of G-Side.
Absolutely.
Can one of my friends come up? He said he requested.
Oh, hold on.
I don't know if he's still in there.
What's the name?
The professor? And go ahead, Opal. Sorry, I didn't.
No, I was just going to say, I think what a lot of people don't realize, and I understand it, because, you know, indigenous peoples are such a small mustard seed size of the population now. And we're relegated to reservations in order to maintain any semblance of our culture, still to be around others that are in our community. And it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind for a lot of people. And to a certain extent, like, I can understand that, right? Like, if you're born and raised in the city, you might not encounter indigenous people or be super familiar or aware. And, like, just realistically, I can understand that. However, when social issues come up, you know, pertaining to, we'll use what's happening in Palestine right now, in Gaza right now. You can walk and chew gum at the same time. You can recognize what's happening here and what's happening there and try to advocate for both. But a problem I continuously have is that many of the people that I've encountered online that are in the far left spaces that support a free Palestine, which I think all of us do too. Nobody wants what's happening to happen. Fail to have that same consistency with the continuous land thefts that are happening in against indigenous communities, or the stripping of sovereign rights from reservations and tribal lands, or the continuous murder and missing women of indigenous communities and the Two-Spirit individuals in tribal lands. Like, this is a systemic erasure and genocide of Native peoples that is not talked about on any level comparable to what we're seeing in the news happening overseas. And this is in their backyard. And it's like, so what's happening on your home front is not important to you. And it's not even your home front. It's actually on the top of my people, our graves. Actually, if we're really trying to get down with this, so that's not important, but other things is, and it's like, that's frustrating to me, which I think everyone can understand.
If they were this, that's where they start throwing out, well, they're the same candidate. Well, if they were the same candidate, why didn't you vote for the other one? Why didn't you do the people that have been here a service? Like, why? Well, you think Kamala would have hit a Nazi salute? A Nazi salute? Yeah,
right.
You mean to tell me that? Like, that doesn't make sense. They're not.
Well, it's been my experience. I mean, at least from what I've noticed, it seems like it's even more sinister than that, because it's like the people who are here, the leftists, particularly the white leftists in America who are here, know they have roots here, know they have family here, know they have, long-standing traditions here. So they're actually willing to overlook the genocides here because they know that they've benefited from them directly. They know that they have family members who participated in them, that they know that they have direct ties to them. So it's easier for them to overlook those because they can say, well, I didn't have anything to do with Palestine. Yes, but your grandfather was, your great-grandfather was the guy who was basically killing indigenous people and stealing their lands in the 1800s. So no, now you have to own up to that. But if you can overlook that and act like that's not that big a deal, and you do that on purpose, then you can focus on everybody who doesn't speak out against what's happening in Palestine and paint them as a bad person. And so I definitely think it's something that they've done intentionally.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's like this part where the people that care about the things that are the G side that's going on across the pond don't care about the ones that are going on here and don't want you to speak about it. And they will tell you, and I've had multiple tell me, that's not the same, or that one's more urgent. Like, you need to just wait. Where I feel like this is a movement that they finally get to not have to face the truth about where we are here in the United States, right? They don't have to face the truth about the history and the current state of the United States. And this was an opportunity to kind of be like, now I finally get to say what I think and what I feel, even when it's you blacks. Like, because you're now one of us. You're just as bad as us now. And it's crazy because the sad thing is that they don't realize that this is still just a product of the same thing. It's literally the product of the same thing. And they really thought that it wasn't. Like, they really thought that it was different. They really thought, you know what I mean? And it's unfortunate because it's like you guys are more dedicated to not deconstructing than anything else, if you think about it.
That's why I know anybody who's seen me post on here knows that, usually I refer to online leftists as white progressivists because they're more concerned about the progression of the white working class than anything else. So they're willing to look down on everybody else, every other marginalized community. Nothing else matters. And I think that at its very core is anti-black, anti-indigenous, so on and so forth. Because when you're only concerned about, they'll say, oh, well, Kamala didn't speak to the working class. Well, 92% of black women and 81% of black men voted for it. And there are black people in the working class. So obviously that's a misnomer. What you mean is she didn't speak to the white working class. She didn't make them feel special enough. She didn't make them feel, different enough. She didn't make them feel non-mediocre enough, or at least not as much as Trump did. So that's what you're pushing for. That's who you're trying to push for. And you're basically trying to force black people and people in community with people who hate them. I mean, how do you think that's going to work?
If I may I, Sarah?
Yeah, go ahead. It's a free panel.
Cool. What's up, y'all? I'm the professor. 33, African American, he, they, et cetera, et cetera. I wanted to say, and I'd hoped that I could have caught Tori while she was still on the panel or whatever. I've been talking to a mutual on this platform for a bit, and it's kind of wild. It feels like the Greek tragedy of Cassandra, being able to see the future and telling people about it, but no one listening or no one believing. And what a mutual said, this was 2 days before Thanksgiving, we recorded a thing, and what they said about this platform, or what they said about digital organizing, people who do most, if not all of their organizing on this and other platforms, is that what ends up happening is that when people get a following on a platform, typically they follow whatever content gets them views or the profit sharing or what have you, right? And that from there, they sort of mask Like, we are sitting here in this live after Tori has been doxxed by a person who we, after reading the exchanges with Tori, likely know. And that individual espoused many sort of like leftist or progressive ideas. And the interesting thing about the way that this discourse has broken down and evolved is that the trajectory of it is from a disagreement over politics, more or less, into endangering individuals over a disagreement over politics on a platform where the block button is free, on a platform in an era where we don't have to engage with content or content creators with whom we disagree or have critiques of or what have you, right? Like, I am very pro discourse. I'm very pro critique. I'm also very pro community building. And one of the things that a creator I admire on this app said is that in order to build community, you have to have consent. You have to have consent to be in community with people. And so, as people mask, my friend said, as they find their niche and they gain more followers based off of the views that they espouse that they may not actually have internalized and put into praxis, is that the issue of the masking, whether metaphorical or literal, is that once a financial incentive is involved, then it will only sort of like get worse from there, right? Like chasing financial gain from your political views or however you build your following, you'll continue to lean into that because there is something to gain from that. And what this mutual said to me is that what ultimately ends up happening is things do become very performative. We are aware that while digital organizing has its place and has its efficacy, for the most much as the people, especially on this platform, especially on this right, believed, then the loudest voices in the rooms, the content we were seeing the most during the election to push the administration or the campaign to take action on Gaza, they would have achieved their goal, and they didn't. So it's relatively easy for me to say that there's an overemphasis over the efficacy of persuasion and organizing on this platform, and for that to then devolve, metastasize, rot into Tory and others being doxxed sort of shows that people are not standing on business, which is also something my mutual said. And the last thing that I wanted to share, my chief concern in all of this, beyond like the well-being or my concern immediately after the well-being of Tory and others who are experiencing this target harassment and doxing, is that my mutual said that basically post-election, she said, people who are not standing on business, people who are built their platforms espousing leftist views they don't put into praxis, that what is going to end up happening with these rifts and disagreements is that individuals are going to become more carceral, right? I've spoken to Tori for a long time and told her that her content, especially post the Maya thing, she became a force, a sort of avatar for the collective outrage and struggle of issues that Black women have been uplifting throughout the centuries and certainly in the digital age. is that they've always wanted to punish Tory. People have always wanted to punish Tory, even when her content, her clapbacks over 3 accounts that got banned were directed at acist Ray palm colored people, right? Because people see our content now and they say, oh, you're targeting black people and this and that. It's like, that's not even how Tori has been consistent in how she posts her content throughout the entire thing. The other thing that's been consistent is that people want to see black women punished. But beyond just wanting to see black women punished, I think there's a real concern that I hope we're all aware of and I hope we're all prepared for, given the state of affairs in the United States, that things are becoming more carceral. We've seen the things with the ICE raids. We've seen the way that actors want to seek revenge against people that they think have impeded their progress or impeded their ambitions. And so, while I think things have gotten wildly, wildly out of hand, and I'm not like some sort of kumbaya, let's all hold hands, whatever. Like, if community necessitates consent, and you don't want to be in community with somebody, block them, right? But what I hope we'll all keep in mind as things become more carceral is that it's going to affect anyone who is not privileged. Anyone who's a part of any marginalized identity, especially black folks, native folks, queer folks, etc., those groups in particular, what I would hate to see especially amongst those who espouse ideals that they don't put into praxis, recurring, recurring episodes in the comments of Tori's video where she described like the text message or displayed the text message that had been sent to them, sent to her, that, you know, people are getting snatched off the streets. And so for me, it's relatively risky to try to reason with people who can't be reasoned with and would go to these lengths to see people that they disagree with, not even people they've met in real life, not even people who've done them material harm, right? But people who will go to these lengths to harm people, even if they espouse a leftist ideal.
So, are you saying that people should not say anything? Maybe I'm old. I got lost there.
What I'm saying is that there's necessarily a backlash whenever political tectonic plates shift, right? And that if this is happening to Tory, it could happen to many, many more people. And so I think that it's prudent simply to make ourselves aware of the risks concerning the way that people who espouse these leftist ideals, who don't actually practice them, move in order to protect themselves and others, right? Because if community necessitates consent, and there are people who are like disagreeing and fighting, who espouse these progressive or leftist ideals, who are willing to break them in order to get their lick back however they want, then we are in dangerous territory digitally. Because for people to go after Tory and then Selena's not even necessarily self-identified as a leftist, but simply is in like Tory's proximity or has had certain takes that have upset people. I think I'm calling for the people who are in this live to sort of like not protect themselves, but to build an insulated community to an extent where we can protect each other. I wish that I could be doing more for Tori, even though she has the situation handled. I wish I could be doing more for Selena, even though Selena has the situation handled. But we all need to be aware and vigilant and on guard so that these things don't continue to happen to folks who share our mutual bonds.
People gonna people, baby. Always. Throughout time. I understand this is a digital thing, but 30 years ago, they were snatching people off the street then. It's the same shit, just a different day. This is no different. It isn't. It's the same story. We were all in the same place. The only difference I see is I just been lied to longer than y'all have. But it's always been the same story. It'll come through. It just takes time. It just takes time. Real talk, I'm excited about where things are right now. Because I see it going over the cliff. And karmically speaking, what is really the alternative when you consider the causes that this country has made? It is not sustainable. Yes, we should protect ourselves. We should always do that because we live in hostile territory. All of us. Always have. But we gonna be all right because that's the other thing that has always happened.
I believe you. I don't know how many people are from southern states. I'm from Alabama, and I currently live here. But somebody said, what did Levi? Somebody said that in the digital era it's a little bit different, and I just want to say, and I don't know, Ms. Menopause, if you experience it at all. You're right. People are gonna people, and it might be slightly different in the digital age or new iteration. But like my auntie, when she marched with Dr. King in the Children's Crusade, it's like people were still getting like snatched up off the streets. It's a more visceral and immediate form of violence compared to what likely TLP did. But we still got to remain vigilant and protect one another.
Always. Always.
We're also all equally bound.
Always.
We're all online. Like the way technology has evolved, like we're still easily bound, but I definitely agree with Miss Menopause. I kind of think that like there's like a little bit of extended time, but it all boils down to like the same thing. So we really, I think that trying to be safe online as much as possible is important, right? I think we should always be taking the steps that we can, but I feel like that's just us evolving with the times, and it shouldn't really be that hard for us since this is our time, if that makes sense. Like most of us, I feel like in this life have always grown up. Well, okay, right? We didn't always have the internet. We didn't always have the internet, some of us, but like the majority of us have spent at least the majority of our lives with the internet, with like, you know what I mean? But at the same time, like Miss Menopause said, people are going to people at the end of the day. If they want to find us, they're going to find us. So that's not to say that we shouldn't try to be careful. I'm just saying that people are going to.
You're right. And no matter how much you may try to be careful,
right.
If someone dislikes you and hates you because you didn't react how they wanted you to, and then they build a vendetta, they can do really gross things anonymously. like what we are seeing with Tori and the comments that Miss Menopause receives on her page that are just like so incredibly racist. And I don't see like many of I don't see any of the pro-Palestinian crowd come out and denounce it or, keep their people in check, right? But there's so much smoke for their allegations that, they want to. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir, y'all know. But basically what I'm trying to say is they do all that and their faces are still ugly. So there's that.
I definitely, I definitely agree. I definitely agree. I just, the thing that my homie said about things getting real carceral post election with some of the divisions that we've seen online is what it said to me, because I understood what they were saying and I observed it. It just hit differently to me when it happened to Tori and then Selena and then others, because these are my mutuals. And you're absolutely right. If somebody wants to find you and do you harm, they absolutely will. And so I think that as we gain a greater understanding of the lengths that these espoused leftists are willing to go over these political disagreements about one election and an issue that has been ongoing before most of us were even born, that knowing our enemy, I don't even like phrasing it like that, understanding the length that people who espouse a politic that would make you think they wouldn't stoop to these levels, shows the vigilance necessary for us to like keep fighting in the ways we got to fight. I just feel like a whole different element. For me, this was a ground shift, and I feel like a whole different element has now been uncovered. And maybe I'm the most sort of like naive person in the panel right now, but I did feel it germane to highlight that, because the carcerality is not simply online, right? It's not simply reserved for right-wing people as it primarily has been in this social media age. Suddenly people who espouse progressive or leftist views are showing their willingness to translate their rage from digital interactions to in real life interactions. And I don't know the extent of that rot throughout the people who feel especially strongly that if you disagree with them, that you deserve to be endangered. That is not something that I thought people who espoused a leftist politic would engage in.
Assume the worst.
Listen, I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna say something real quick. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Menopause. You go ahead first.
No, baby, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I hate to break it to you, but I've been doxxed about 4 times now by supposed leftists. I am fortunate enough that I have family that is in law enforcement, so it was ended quite quickly. Into, this poster child and this effigy to represent Black women in terms of putting us in our place. And I know I'm not the only person who's experienced this. So it might seem jarring to people who haven't experienced it thus far or seen it get to this level this far, but I can assure you it's been happening. Kind of like Ms. Menopause was saying, this isn't new. None of it's new. Even the online aspect of it. I've had people threaten my children's lives. I've had people send me information telling me my kids' school. So, it's not new. It's just that, right now, it's being centered because they found Tory, and they've been beating up on her for months. And fortunately, the community has rallied around her in the way we have and are giving her protection. And that is so amazing, but we can't sit here and pretend it's new, because it's not new. It's not isolated to what people prior to this thought was just, oh, this is stuff that, MAGA people do. No. I can promise you it's not just MAGA people. It's not just Trump supporters or incels. It is people who claim to be on the left. So, like I said, I can see how it might be jarring to someone who hadn't seen it, but it's been happening.
I think that what makes it actually jarring is the fact that we all saw on November 5th that the majority of this country thinks we do not matter. I think it was jarring that it was right there in black and white. So it is a little shell shock, I think, for all of us, even though I knew, I've known for decades. But to see the majority of the country stand up, put their hand in the air and say, fuck you, that was intense. So it does give it something a little special. So yeah, we have to look out for ourselves. We have to look out for each other. And we have to be extra, extra, extra careful. I mean, there's no better way to say it except all skinfolk and kinfolk. We have to be careful not to be fooled by that.
That's a mouth. That's a whole mouth. That's a whole word, Miss Menopause. I appreciate that. It's something to hear something to hear when you come from a perspective that we didn't even live to see. And it's raw and unfiltered. And I'm glad that you are here to provide us with that perspective and that advisement. And I will always take your words under advisement. And so I just appreciate you for sharing that with us. But I am going to say, y'all, Sarah is tired and she needs to go to bed.
I was literally about to say, Sarah, thank you so much for having this space.
Me too. Thank you so much, everybody.
Miss
Thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Y'all all have a good night, okay? Y'all take care.
Good night.
Yeah, take care.
Bye,
everybody.
y'all.